Welcome back to the Dreaming and Doing podcast. I'm really excited to be here today with Laura Mickler, who is a mindset coach, yogi, and a huge believer in saying, why not? In response to people saying, you can't do something, which I really like, of course. And her coaching focuses on determining, manifesting, and implementing the big dreams we have and helping people recognize their burnout. She spent more than a decade in the corporate financial world and walked away to coach and start her own yoga studio. Laura preaches that money follows when you realize your assignment here on earth and what that is. So at the Branch Collective, she's involved in speaking and teaching and coaching and owning Sacred Steps Yoga Studio and store. So she's got a lot going on. And she lives in Indiana with her husband, Alex, two boys, and puppies, Teddy and Poppy. So, Laura, I'm so glad to have you here.
Yes. Good to see your face for sure.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm looking forward to catching up with you and also,
Yeah.
to talk about our topic today, kind of like career changes. And because when I met you, actually, you were not doing, or I don't think you were doing what
Mm-mm.
you're doing now.
I was still in that corporate financial career that you just mentioned. So, yeah.
Yes. And so everything that we were talking about in a program that you and I were in was all about that, right? That
Mm-hmm.
world. And,
Yeah.
we were at one of our retreats that we were on together. And there were
Mm-hmm.
some things that you said that kind of clued me in onto like other interests that you
Yeah.
had. Um, and you've pivoted. And so
Mm-hmm.
today we're going to be talking about that. Um, so talk with us a little bit about that career change you made and any little
Yeah.
breadcrumbs that led you in that direction.
Yeah, I definitely, and I will, you're being very polite in saying that I pivoted. I literally lit a match, threw it in the dumpster, and walked away. So that is how I describe my change of career here. But what ended up happening, so I had kind of, coming out of the pandemic, and I worked in the mortgage industry. So I never had any kind of slowdown. In fact, my business went up exponentially. And so I had just been working, 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 and I was making money, which was wonderful. But at the same time, I just started to feel icky about some of the things that I was
Mm.
doing. So it was, it's very governmentally regulated. So it was like, this just seems a little bit like it's skewed one way. And, I would have people that, I wouldn't trust with $5 and they were able to lend to them. But then these other folks that I know are going to pay their mortgage on time couldn't do anything for them. And so
Hmm.
just the concept just started really to kind of agitate and, feel a little itchy, I guess. And then I think really what the catalyst for me was, I lost my mom kind of suddenly in the
Mm.
summer of 2022. And she was only 64 when she passed away. And so that really got me thinking. I just turned 40. So,
Mm.
my illogical mind says, I've only got like 25, 26, 27 years left. What am I going to do with this? And it just really became apparent to me that that things were not, this mortgage thing was not going to be what I wanted to do forever. But at the same time of that, I had all these people with well intentions. I will say it wasn't malicious or anything like that, but they kept saying to me, "But you're so good at it. But you make
Mm.
so much money." And all of those things were true. However, it just still didn't feel right in my body. It didn't feel right. I wasn't sleeping well. I became so physically sick from all of this. So that's where the burnout piece of my work comes in is I have literally been there. And so making sure that, I was being true to myself. And I kind of think the universe jumped in here too because I know myself and I would have kind of gradually walked out of it and probably strung it along forever. But just had a series of events. I changed companies thinking that was the issue. And then it just, all of these things snowballed to me just getting really sick and just kind of walking away from everything. And so I had this period, and this is all only a year old of freshness. So,
Mhm.
I won't say that I'm a pro at any of this by any stretch, but um, before all of that happened, I had worked with a professional coach for years and honestly was the secret to my success, I think, because I had that accountability. I had that person that was just, everything I was blowing up on my mind to be a huge deal, he would say, but you just do this, this, and this, and it's not that big of a deal. And so I think we all need that in whatever profession we're in. But I
Yeah.
really, I really thought it really lights me up to be able to do this as a mentor, as a coach for other people. And so I kind of knew that maybe I'd want to roll into the coaching role of things. And, it was just time to take that plunge. And at the same time, I have been a long time yoga practitioner. I did my teacher training more for me than anything else. But this opportunity fell into my lap to open a yoga studio. And so I thought, why not? And I did it. And we just celebrated our first year. And it's been a really great way for me to build the community that I want to be around.
Yeah. And I remember that moment, right? Because I
Yeah.
follow you on Facebook and I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Laura has a what? She's got a yoga studio? Like, what is going on? I don't know anything about
Yes.
Laura and yoga.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so lots of pivots.
Absolutely. And and it's so funny because I do get that reaction. I'll see friends from college that I haven't talked to in a couple of years and they're like, literally, what are you doing? What is going on? And not in a you're crazy kind of way, just like, this is a lot. So it does sound like a lot, but it all flows together. And that's what I really wanted for my life was this like, you know, everything just clicking.
Yeah. Well, and as you know, I'm batch recording episodes
Yeah.
today, and it's just so interesting to hear how all of these conversations are just connecting, right?
Mhm.
Like my first
Mhm.
conversation of the morning, we were talking about how we can sometimes get caught up striving, being really ambitious, and finding that we're unfulfilled because maybe I was striving for something that other people said was worth chasing, like
Mhm.
externals, but maybe is
Mhm.
not fulfilling to me. And
Yeah.
I'm hearing that for you, but you're so good at it, right? But okay,
Mhm.
but it's not giving me meaning, right?
Right. Right.
And then with Joe, who you briefly saw a second
Yeah.
ago, right, talking about the good life, and even how sometimes there are things we put on a pedestal, like having your own business, right? But that might not be right for me,
Mhm.
right? And really having the discernment to say, what is it that I want? What
Right.
is good for me versus what everyone else determines is like the good life.
Mhm. Right.
And so I'm hearing all of that in kind of this journey that you've been on over the
Yes.
past few years.
Definitely. And I think, for me too, depending on where you live, it can be a huge thing. So, I
Hmm.
live in a very small town in Indiana, and it's a lot of who do you think you are? And that comes through,
Hmm.
just about anything that I'm doing. I have people that call the yoga studio and say, I can't participate in yoga because of my faith. I have a whole other set of opinions on that, but there are just these outside factors that you don't, just kind of come at you sideways sometimes. And, it depends
Wow.
on your relationship with your family. Does your family have strong opinions on what you should be doing? And, a partner or any of those kinds of things. So yeah, you really have to come inside yourself and figure out what you're going to tolerate, what you really want and what's good. So yeah.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about that, right? Like
Mhm.
thinking about coming from a small town and you're like, I have things that I want for my life.
Right.
I'm going to do them. I'm going to pursue them. And then to see people, it almost sounds like some backlash or
Yeah.
some opinions because you've decided I'm going to pursue things that I want. I'm going to take up space. I'm going to do them because I
Yeah.
want to do them.
Absolutely. And I think for me, it was this realization. So I'm kind of one of those like typical Midwesterners that I grew up around here. I went to high school 20 minutes from here. I was born, everyone in my family is born in the same hospital here, just that kind of a thing. But my husband and I really made the decision that like this is an okay place to raise our family. This is where we want to be. It's very inexpensive to live here. So our
Hmm.
priority we placed on travel. But even that, I mean, when you and I were in our group together, we traveled quite a bit. And
Yeah.
so it was, and just for that, on top of my leisure travel and, other things that I was doing. And so it's really interesting to me. I mean, I get comments all the time of, and I'm not a person like, let me post my fabulous vacations on social
Hmm.
media. But at the same time, I like people to know, like, you can go do things. You don't have
Hmm.
to be stuck. There's a way to make this your priority. And so with whatever you're choosing to do, people are going to have opinions on it. And so I've just kind of decided, even if it's not the norm for around here, I actually married the only other person in this town that is obsessed with the country of England and likes soccer and all of the things that I like. We're just not the normal people around here. We're not the beer drinking, football playing, that kind of a thing. And so you just really have to lean into finding your people. And that's what I found with the yoga studio is that slowly but surely I am collecting this group of
Mm.
people into my circle that they don't necessarily want what everybody else says you have to have. And especially around here being such a blue collar type of place, it's okay if you want to, graduate high school, go to college, get married, get a job. That's the typical, thing. But what if the you don't get a job? What if you build a business instead? And, just know that you can spend your energy justifying it all the time, or you can spend your energy just doing your thing.
Yeah, and that is
Mhm.
so interesting, right? Because on one hand, when you're painting, especially like we were born in the same hospital, grew up in the
Mhm.
community, there's a
Mhm.
part of it that sounds very cozy and
Yes.
homey. And yet there's like this other side where like if you're not fitting in,
Yeah.
where maybe you stand out like a sore thumb. But the other part that I love about that is that we can maybe assume because there's pressure to be the same,
Yeah.
like kind of
Yeah.
fit in. Um, and by you being open and willing to say, I'm going to do me, I'm going to do what brings me joy, that other people are finding you and in realizing that like maybe I'm not alone in wanting
Mhm.
these other things and kind of building that community and for other people as well.
Right. And I almost see it as, and it's really interesting to me because people for the last probably 10 years of my life have called me brave. And let me
Mm,
tell you, I feel the exact opposite of brave, right? And so,
yeah.
but in my mind, I always have a contingency plan for this. If this doesn't work, I will XYZ. And I don't usually share that with folks, but then people are like, oh my gosh, you're so brave. But what I'm finding is that just by showing up that way for
Mm-hmm.
myself, I'm inspiring other people to say, you know what? I don't want to go to an office every day and work at 9 to 5 and that's my whole entire life. Or, I don't want my whole identity to be my job or whatever it is. And I hope that's not coming across. I don't mean to say I am just so inspiring to all, but I think just anytime you can walk out of that norm and show other people that that's not what you're gonna do, I think it's so cool because other people just, and I think about people that I've myself have drawn to. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're not doing it the way that you have to do it. And so,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of a thing. And so it's very cool that I've had people come back and say, you were that person for me. And I'm like, I'm just over here, scared crapless. And it's just, it's interesting. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that was the word popping into my head. And one of the things I always think about and tell people when I'm working with clients is that we can, like, being brave doesn't mean that we feel brave, right? Being
Right.
brave just means being brave and doing brave
hmm
things, but we can do brave things and not feel brave at all.
Yeah. And I'll use, to pare that down an example, I'll use the yoga studio. So I had taught yoga. I'd never owned a studio before. I'd never really owned like a brick and mortar business before. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, she really wants me to be in the space where the studio is. She didn't make me sign a lease. So if I do this for 6 months and I hate it or it doesn't work or, I've been paying the rent out of my pocket for that long, then I walk away and it's okay. And, but everybody else is saying, you opened a yoga studio. That's crazy. You know what I mean? And so in
Yeah.
my mind, I'm like, well, I guess I'll slap some classes together and throw it on a website and see what we have. And so yeah, I think, like you said, perception is everything in
Mm.
that. And, you may perceive people as brave, and I can guarantee you that they have the same things keeping them up at night that you do.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. And again, good reminder of like, this is what it looks like on the outside, but
Yeah,
you're not seeing what it looks like from
exactly.
behind.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I love that. I want to ask you about a few things that you
Yeah, please
mentioned
do.
in your bio.
Yeah, please do.
You mentioned that you believe that money follows you when you realize what your assignment on earth is.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit more about that, right? I
Yes.
often think to myself or say like do what you love and the money will follow. Talk with
Right.
me about this idea that you have that money follows when you realize your assignment on earth.
Yeah, I think it goes back truly to what your gifts are and what you're bringing to people. And so that is just naturally going to create, you know, income for you in some kind of way.